Hey family, I'm Kaleon, and I interpret messages from the divine in music. I'm a soldier, a cryptologic linguist, and a father of the balance. Family, today I want to talk to you about a problem I've noticed with modern spirituality, especially here on social media, the kind of spirituality that thrives here. You know what I'm talking about. You'll see quotes or hear things about how everything happens for a reason, just focus on gratitude, raise your vibration, how life is beautiful, and how we're all beings made of light and love. And listen, I understand what they're trying to do. I know many of them genuinely want to help. But for many people, those words don't land as healing. They land as dismissal. Because what happens when life isn't beautiful? What happens when you're grieving? What happens when you're homeless? What happens when you're an addict trying to survive another day? What happens when you've buried people you love? What happens when trauma follows you into every room you enter? And what happens when depression makes it impossible to get out of bed? What happens when you're staring at the wreckage of your own choices and wondering if you ruined everything? For many of us, the world doesn't look wonderful, and spirituality that cannot acknowledge that reality has very little to offer most people who need it. Kendrick Lamar understood this. In the song All Right, it wasn't written from the comfort of privilege untouched by suffering. That's why I love hip-hop. It emerged from a community shaped by generations of pain, from the legacy of slavery, racism, violence, poverty, fear. It speaks honestly about the darkness, and that's exactly why hope becomes believable in this song. Because hope that refuses to look suffering in the eye isn't hope, it's denial. I think this is where many spiritual teachers lose people, especially those standing in darkness who need them most. Because if you tell someone whose entire life is falling apart that all they need to do is appreciate the pretty sunset, they may rightfully wonder if you've ever even truly suffered at all. The addict sleeping beneath a bridge doesn't need another lecture about positive thinking. The traumatized veteran doesn't need someone insisting everything happens for a reason. The abused child growing into adulthood doesn't need to be told they should simply choose joy. What they need is someone willing to sit beside them in the darkness long enough to say, I see your pain. I believe you. This shouldn't have happened, and I'm not going anywhere. Even our oldest spiritual traditions understood this. The Buddha began with questioning suffering. The Psalms in the Bible are filled with lament. Job questioned God. Jesus wept. The divine, if it means anything at all, must be large enough to hold our grief. Because if your God only exists in abundance, what happens when abundance disappears? If your spirituality only works during prosperity, what happens when suffering arrives? Eventually, all of us encounter pain. Eventually, all of us lose something. Eventually, all of us ask difficult questions. And in those moments, blind positivity feels hollow. But hope is different. Hope doesn't say everything is fine, everything is beautiful. Hope says everything is not fine, and I still believe tomorrow might be worth reaching. It might be worth sticking around for. Hope doesn't deny the darkness. It carries a candle into it. And maybe that's what Kendrick Lamar meant in the song when he says, we gonna be all right. Not because the system suddenly fixes itself when you decide to believe. Not because trauma magically disappears. Not because justice arrives overnight. But because somewhere deep within us remains a refusal to surrender our humanity. And in that, with our humanity, a refusal to stop loving, a refusal to stop trying, a refusal to stop believing that healing is possible. For me personally, I won't pretend life has been wonderful lately. I've lost so much, and I carry so much regret. My own personal pain sits close enough some days that gratitude feels impossible to touch. And so when I see these messages about how gratitude is the answer, I feel conflicted. And yet, I do continue seeking. Not because I've escaped suffering, but because I've encountered enough love to know suffering isn't the whole story. I've seen strangers show compassion. I've seen people choose forgiveness. I've seen communities rise around shared wounds. I've watched people who had every reason to become bitter instead choose to become kind. And that tells me something sacred. Maybe faith isn't pretending life is beautiful. Maybe faith is believing beauty can still exist within brokenness. Maybe spirituality isn't escaping the human experience. Maybe it's entering fully into it. Laughing when laughter comes, weeping when grief arrives, celebrating what is good and mourning what has been lost, refusing to abandon each other along the way. So to anyone out there that's struggling right now, or any who carry burdens no one sees, those who can't honestly say life feels wonderful, I don't ask you to fake gratitude. I don't ask you to silence your pain. I simply ask you to keep going. Remain open to the possibility that darkness isn't all there is. Remain open to the possibility that healing may come, even if slowly. Remain open to the possibility that love still exists, and that people can surprise you. And that perhaps one day, after surviving what you thought would destroy you, as I've been through many times, you'll discover what generations before us already knew. That hope isn't naive, it's courageous. And together, we gonna be all right. And now a prayer for my beloved spiritual and co-sister Malika. Divine Mother, Divine Father, and Holy Mystery beyond all names. Be close to those who cannot see beauty today. Sit beside those who are grieving. Strengthen those who are weary. Comfort those whose faith feels fragile. Help us become people who offer more than easy answers. Teach us to carry hope honestly. May we be lights that do not blind others to their pain, but flames that warm, guide, and accompany them through it. And may we remember that healing begins not with denial, but with compassion for ourselves and others. Ashe, Amin, and Amen. Family, if this message speaks to you, help me spread it by liking, commenting, sharing, or simply whispering it into the wind. Thanks for watching, family. See you next time. Same fire, new rhythm.